We've given away our identity to secularism, which is identity politics. The American identity was, I don't care where you came from. Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Africa, China, Russia, wherever. If you come here and you love this country, we're cool. You embrace our values.
Yep.
I don't care what your values were over there. You embrace our values here. You love that flag. We're cool. You're welcome. You're not only welcome, I will love you like my own family.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Patriot Crusader Mission, episode 15. I hope everyone had a great, happy Thanksgiving. It's been a week since Thanksgiving now.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
And you guys,
have you eaten all your food yet?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, holy smokes.
Or throw it out.
Yeah, throw it out or freeze it. You know, we've had a pretty good amount of stuff gone into the freezer and within the turkey soup. Lauren did a great job. She cooked for like 20, but for two because we really like having leftovers and the turkey soup and the fixins and having that anytime you want. Anyways, I hope you had a great one. I hope this news cycle isn't driving you too crazy. The Trump Nation, there has been some ups and downs and sideways and spirals and any other movement you can think of. We're on a high right now after seeing his 48-minute speech, which was great. It was great to finally hear from him.
Yeah, he's looking good. And yeah, I mean, we haven't not seen his face all that much throughout all this. He's had his lawyers and other people speaking kind of on his behalf. So it was good to have his voice out there.
Yeah,
encouraging for everybody.
And we've been picking up a lot of subscribers, and I want to thank all of our new subscribers. And, we got a lot of good traction and a lot of good discussion on my Civil War question. Are we in a civil war? And the answer is, of course, we are. It's been a cold civil war since at least the 60s. Some people who are far better historians than me say sooner. I don't know. I just know after Flower Power and we lost church ladies in the schools to hippie chicks is when it all went bad, as well as some the liberal Supreme Court, with taking God out of schools and, their version of what they call separation of church and state, which is not what they say it is. So anyways, we had a lot of great dialogue on there, and it appears a lot of people are prepared and are continuing to prepare. Some people are just starting to prepare. And, I really we got a good amount of questions from some people on where they should go. Mm-hmm. Like, particularly people who are mobile, retirees, they're wondering where they should, settle now. Yeah. If you're mobile, like, because, I've been telling everyone, get out of the cities. I've been telling everyone, get out of liberal states. Yeah. I just saw in the news today that like 10 plus men in a suburb of Massachusetts, Waltham, have been clubbed upside the head. I saw, you posted. I'm just like, of course it's Massachusetts where you can't defend yourself with anything. Right. No one has a concealed carry permit. Right. And, this stuff's going on, but it could happen anywhere. The main thing is this, guys. I don't see the world getting any better. If Trump wins, then we're going to be dealing with BLM and Antifa terrorists for the next 4 years. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that if Trump wins, he's hopefully going to put the boot down on things a little bit more effectively than he did over the summer, as far as using National Guard and kind of more government resources to stop idiocy like what we saw over the summer? Do you think that he will, because he's not in office? Or
I think that it's all going to. I think it's going to be dependent the way it's written in the Constitution. It's going to be up to the governors.
Still states.
So if the people don't want it, they can recall their governor. do a special election and put in a conservative governor that would say, hey, president, we want troops, right? They can activate their own National Guard. They have all the weapons that they need. They just won't use them because they don't want to upset their voter base, which is the Democrats, which is Antifa and BLM.
At what point the president could, from a higher level, say, this is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, who knows? We're in such uncharted times. When it comes constitutionally, I don't know anything anymore. Okay. Not that,
people take it more as suggestion these days anyways.
Yeah, exactly. But, and if Trump manages to stay in power, or if he manages to stay in power, like I said, we're going to be dealing with Antifa and BLM terrorism. If he doesn't, then you're going to be dealing with the police state coming after you. And the retribution police, which is the BLM, Antifa. They've already talked about lists. They've already talked about so many other things. And they're coming for your freedoms. They're going to use red flag laws and everything else to try to disarm you. And they're going to pass tons of legislation. And, so where do you go? What do you do? So here are my top 10 things for planning a compound. So number one, why are you leaving? Or why are you building a compound? You're building a compound because you believe that there's a possibility that society could unravel to the point where people are going to either come try and take your stuff or try to come make you do stuff in your life that you don't want to do, right? So whether it's coming to seize your guns, coming to take your food, coming to, force your kids into their public schools, or saying, forcing a vaccine, or coming and telling you, hey, you can't have your family over for Christmas or Thanksgiving. Right. Who in the hell ever thought that would happen?
Right.
But here we are. So that's why, all right? Or, you're tired of being the only cowboy in an all-Indian town, which is what we've been. We're in, Charlottesville, Virginia, which has been called the capital of the resistance against Trump.
Yeah.
It is a Democrat stronghold, abortion mill having, snowflake, non-free speech, University of Virginia, destroying, countless generations of our youth over there. Thomas Jefferson's University has just totally fallen into, I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're surrounded by a lot of red country.
That's
and
we're
kind of on the edge of that where we live between what Charlottesville considers a city and then the country. But obviously the country is still impacted by the state government stuff. So what happens in Richmond, no matter whether we're in the red country in Virginia or kind of more the city. So when we're planning compounds, or when people are planning compounds, you're talking about getting remote in places that people can't reach you, but the state is where the state level is where you need to look first, as far as would the government try to come find you even if you're in a remote place. Right.
So the number one thing that I chose on my list was choosing someplace deeply conservative. I want to move to the most conservative red state I can find. Because what we're seeing here in Virginia, landmass wise is probably 90% tile, if not more, red, conservative red. But the problem is that the population centers, the cities, override that, right? So you had this huge, our governor Ralph Northam, the dictator in chief here in this state, tried to pass a bunch of gun laws and did pass some gun laws, and there was a massive Second Amendment protest in Richmond, which I went to, and you saw this grassroots swell or storm of all these counties. I think it's like 97% of counties or 98% of counties declared themselves sanctuary, Second Amendment sanctuary zones to go with the immigration sanctuary cities and all that stuff. They kind of use their own logic against it. But the problem is there, guys, that means that local law enforcement, your sheriff, who's obviously going to be conservative in those areas, and his deputies are not going to enforce the gun laws. But the way it'll work is this. The governor will set up a state police gun task force that has jurisdiction throughout the state, and they will, be the ones coming for your guns.
So no matter how red your
county is, it doesn't matter.
Or even percentage red your state, if there are still pockets of blue that impact the government, your state's not good enough.
Your state's not going to be good enough. Now, you may be way down on the priority list. Obviously, the states only have so many resources, and they got to prioritize where they're going to do that. Whereas your local government, PD, like Albemarle County is not on that sanctuary city. That's where we are.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, we could be on their radar because we're local and they're local, right? So it's better to be there, but you're still not safe. All it takes is you to offend one important person who makes a phone call, and they, use the red flag laws to disarm you.
Right. This is somewhat of a tangent, so we can not answer if you don't want to. But we're seeing, I think before when we were talking about law enforcement enforcing things that really go against the principles of law enforcement, having firearms and freedoms and everything that they kind of initially swore to protect. And we're like, they would never follow through on being ordered to take someone's guns in that way. And now we're seeing with COVID, law enforcement enforcing these mandates and laws that really don't have much legal ground. And I think people are pretty surprised by how much law enforcement is just doing what they're being told as far as arresting store owners and gym owners and things like that. So at this point, we should assume that law enforcement will come after us for our guns if they're told to do so.
I would say yes. I think if they don't, they're the exception. Mm-hmm. One, I've begged them not to obey these laws or these orders, not these unconstitutional orders. Sheriffs have a little bit more say than your city police officer who works for commissioner or, works for a mayor, who works for a police chief, et cetera. They don't want to be unemployed in this economy.
Right. So right? The stateies who might be put on this
And then guess what happens?
Force,
if they get fired, they're getting disarmed.
Right.
Right. So like in Massachusetts, I remember getting in an argument with one of my former partners, who I wrote with was very anti, AR-15. And he said, Jay, you're never going to be able to convince me that you're going to need an AR-15. And I said, hey, brother, did you see the LA riots? Have you ever seen, mobs of people that are coming for you? A modern day lynch mob? And he's like, no, that could never happen. And I remember calling him during Ferguson. And now, and he started to see the light during Ferguson, but now with the BLM and Antifa and, these cities and everything, he's like, Jay, I was 100% wrong and you were right. But most northern cops and most Democrat cops that are out there that, for whatever reason, they're still crazy enough to vote Democrat, to people who hate them, want to defund them, want to assassinate them, and believe that they're dictators and Nazis. They will follow those laws because they have politics too. Yeah. They're anti-Second Amendment. You're telling me that some power trippers out there don't like the fact that they're the only ones allowed to carry a gun?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Right? Yeah. And and that's what I would get in this argument with this guy is he didn't like having to deal with walking into armed places and going from a cop in Boston where no one had guns to a cop in Virginia where every car I pulled over had 3 guns on the dash. Right. Obviously, I'm exaggerating slightly. There was a lot to
navigate there.
To adjust to there. And, and when I told him that, hey, the county I live in is 750 square miles and we might have 7 cops if lucky working that, and he's like, holy smokes. Yeah. Because in Boston, if the police aren't there in 90 seconds, 122 minutes, it's rare. Yeah. Right? Particularly in high crime areas, when they're called because everyone's so close and it's a small city geographically. So, the very long answer to you is I think that they will enforce the law. They won't like it, but they're going to be told and they're going to be ordered and they're going to do it. And, if I was a boss, a chief, and I had to pick people who are going to do this, I'm going to pick people who I know are on that side. Right. Right? Because they're not going to be as miserable doing it.
The power tripper type.
Right.
people that they have. Yeah.
So, watching this protest in New York City where they closed down they arrested this bar owner.
Yeah.
And they had 1,000+ people in the street, and they were protesting, and the cops there. And, it breaks my heart because these cops have got it so bad.
Yeah.
They have been demonized by the left, BLM and Antifa.
And now they're getting it.
And the people who are defending them are these small business owners.
Yeah.
But it's really insidious, and it's by design because these patriots have watched them not enforce the law on BLM and Antifa.
Yeah.
Who are there to destroy and hurt.
Yes.
And here they are just trying to make a living. They support them, and they're coming down hard on them. Zero tolerance, locking them up, doing that. And of course, the police don't get beat up. There's no riots. There's none of that stuff. Yeah. And it's going to get really old, and I don't know how long that's going to last.
Probably. I think this is one of the first ones that you really had a larger scale protest as a result of these actions. Is that correct? As far as like people really starting to get fed up with this enforcement of COVID lockdowns and things like that. So I'd imagine that might be a tipping point, that the more people that are arrested in the coming days, weeks, months, the more we're going to see this pushback by the people.
I think so. And this all goes back to where you live again, which is why we're talking about part one, which is choose a deeply conservative state. If you're in a deeply conservative state, you won't even be dealing with this.
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't even, but you live in New York City, run by de Blasio.
What do you expect? Yeah.
Run by, the Godfather, Cuomo. Yeah. It's just, people just have to understand that the old days for right now are gone until we fight and take them back. And the mere fact that, and this is going to sound terrible, that you may be a small business owner, and if you don't have any other identifier, if you're not a protected group, you are screwed. Mm-hmm. They're going to come get you because you can't claim I'm being harassed because I'm a Martian. I'm a whatever. You choose your identifier.
Yeah.
And they're going to be the first ones to get targeted.
Yeah.
And it sucks. But what do you say to them? You say, you live in New York. What'd you expect?
Yeah, I think they probably always thought that it would never get any worse than.
Yeah, well, that's what we all thought, and that's why we're in this boat.
Here we are, 2020, the year that keeps on giving. But so I know that we saw an interview with DeSantis in Florida, and he was, proudly talking about how he supported his business owners and this entire time, and who are we to say who's essential and not essential? And so certainly there are some states out there that we see people fleeing to these conservative states, and I would imagine we'll also see small businesses fleeing.
Well, you've already seen small and large businesses fleeing these hellholes where they don't enforce the law.
Yeah.
Like New York City is a ghost town. Mm-hmm. Manhattan, all these big stores have fled. A lot of other places, big stores have fled. Yeah. And it's because I wouldn't open up a business in a BLM community.
Yeah.
Right? Nope. Why? So something bad could happen on the opposite coast and they decide they want to shop for free?
Yeah.
Burn my store down, ruin my life again? No way.
So all that to come back to planning your compound, we've established, pick a deeply conservative state and look into the future a little bit. Because I know Virginia used to be red.
Right.
And I think it's surprised some people with how quickly it switched over. And so do as best you can to predict what might happen come the next election or several election cycles. As don't move somewhere that's, these battleground states. If don't pick one of those that could go one way or the other.
It's so disheartening because I want to tell, the Patriot and the team player in me wants to be like, everyone moved to North Carolina.
Or how Democrats are saying everyone moved to Georgia, right?
Yeah, everyone moved to North Carolina, so North Carolina stays red.
Yeah.
But I don't want to risk going all in, dropping roots, and getting uprooted again.
Well, and that's, I know that Tennessee's on the short list, but there are some Hollywood type cities in Tennessee with the country music industry, and so it's is that going to have the potential to grow as a big enough presence in that state to impact it?
I think that there's enough of a head start there. Well, I think they went 60%, 60, or 60 something percent for Trump this time. They are considered out of the 3 or 4 or 5 steps conservative, I think there are 3 or 4 considered statewide. And, one, I would visit Nashville, but I don't want to live in it because why? Sure. They're going to elect the Democrat mayor. Yeah. Democrat mayor is going to do their job. It's going to demonize the police, and you're going to have protests, you're going to have all that stuff again. Now, luckily, there's enough patriots in Tennessee that they have a 60% vote. So I think that more people migrating to a place like Tennessee is going to help us out. So again, there's a lot of things to think about here when we're doing this, and I don't mean to make this so chaotic. So one, choose a deeply conservative state. So it's not going to flip, something that gives you some time, right? So this election, we moved to Maine. We moved to northern Maine. I looked at the map. Northern Maine was red. It had gone red. It was gray. But the problem is yes, they split their congressional votes or their, seats and electoral votes or whatever, but it's still governed by the same liberal governor. And the whole state is going more and more blue as Massachusetts comes up and flees into it, and New York flees into it, and it's kind of ruining that top right, New Hampshire and Maine. And then when we realized that wasn't going to work for a variety of reasons, we decided, hey, let's come back down here, reset, and then see what the election tells us about the country. So things that, what makes a state conservative? You want a pro-Second Amendment state. You want a pro-God state. All right? You want a pro-life state. All right? And you want a state that if, for God forbid, this gets to a place where this country is going to go through balkanization, which is meaning that we decide in some kind of compromise that the East Coast and the West Coast are going their own direction, and the middle of the country is going to do its own direction. So, Texas, Arizona, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe, the Dakotas, all the way up to Montana. And if I missed some states in there, I'm sorry. They just decide, hey, listen, we see the world completely opposite from one another. There's no way in hell we're going to ever compromise pro-life, pro-choice. Or pro-murder, right? So it's one or the other, right? And they're not going to compromise. There is no compromise on that. And so you get enough of those issues stacked on each other, and literally you don't see the world entire. You can't govern those people the same.
Well, that's certainly where we are. Yeah. So it's choosing a state that's positioned in a way that if that happened,
that you believe
go
they
in the
would go with it.
direction that you want to go.
Right. So choosing northern Maine. I don't see northern Maine, even though I know the people up there are conservative. If you took from the rural parts of Maine, the rural parts of upstate New York, and you plop them in Montana, they would fit right in.
But unfortunately, they're attached.
They're attached to these big. So unless they're going to start carving off counties, which they can't. So you don't want to choose one that's going to be all isolated up alone in the north, which is unfortunately Maine. Right? There's Canada.
They could join Nova Scotia.
Which is even worse than what we are right now. But yeah, you're right. So you want to choose somebody who's geographically close to that. Then you want to choose something that's got, a low population, right? Because God forbid if things go bad, the more people you have in one area, that's more mouths to feed, that's more sewer systems that are needed. It's more infrastructure needed to run and maintain those lives, right? So, and with that comes crime. And with that comes poverty, and with that comes all these things, and with that comes, like New York City cannot function on it. It has to truck in. Tens of thousands of trucks, I think a week to keep it running. Maybe even a day. I don't even know. I mean, I'd be for those of you who are truckers out there, Billy and other fans of the show. It'd be great to know whatever. I mean, so there's an example of a place that can't exist on its own.
Right.
Right? So you want to choose a place with low population that has a lot of farmland so that if Hannaford's or whatever, or Kroger or Harris Teeter or whatever, Shaw's, doesn't get their shipment of whatever because the freeways are clogged or there's a strike going on or something, you can go to your local farmer.
Yeah.
And instead of them selling it to Shaw's, they'll sell it to you.
Yeah. Or you
have your own.
Or you have the property to do it yourself, which is, I think, always what we'd advocate, is to be totally self-sustainable.
The other thing is you don't want to be too close to a big urban area because they will, they will raid or they will come up and they will infiltrate into your region. So you want something that's kind of isolated but still has conveniences, right?
Yeah, that's a thin line to walk. And I know we always talk about kind of, I want to be a little closer to convenience. You want to be farther away. So like, what is that line of that you can have access? And we're going to be talking about other things that require some level of convenience, healthcare,
right.
et cetera,
but
not so close that people can walk to you if there's a problem in the city.
Right. So you don't want that, or you don't want it to be a 10-minute drive. Mm-hmm. Like you want hours from that big city where that urban population that's going to be out of food, out of water, out of everything in a day, 24, 48 hours. Mm-hmm. And they're going to start walking or they're going to start traveling. Yeah. And those suburban areas around that are going to be destroyed very quickly, and then it's going to go out from there. So you want, the low population areas, and you want to be remote, and then you want to be away from big government. Mm-hmm. Meaning you don't want to be next to a big military base. You don't want to be, next to, an FBI compound or, like we have NJIC here. You don't want any part of that.
Jail.
Huh?
Or a jail.
Or, right, you don't want to be near a big
jail.
prison.
Yeah.
Right. But the main, being near a National Guard place, I don't have a problem with, because you chose a conservative place to go with a conservative governor to do whatever they're doing. Again, I don't want the biggest compound they got, but knowing you have those assets there would be nice if things got hairy, right? The next thing you want to choose is a defensible position, right? You want to try to choose, everybody wants to be up in a mountain. Everybody wants to, but it doesn't need to be that. It just needs to be something where your house can't be seen from a zillion miles away, right? Being up on the hill where everyone can see it and shoot at your house is not the best place to be.
Right, even though you're at the top of the hill.
Even though you're at the top of the hill. If anybody wants to shoot at you, they can see it, and they can shoot it from all the way around you. So again, you don't want to be seen from far away. You kind of want to be out of sight, out of mind, but being up at an altitude where you can see everyone around you, right? So again, that's something to consider. Having a defensible position, and with a defensible position comes, you can't hold out for indefinitely on your own.
Right.
And that's where being around like-minded individuals is. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, why you want to go to a conservative place, because hopefully you can get there, meet your neighbors, and say, hey, if anything goes bad here, you and I see the world the same. You and I see the world the same. What's our plan?
So if people are seriously considering this, that they recognize they're not in the best place and they're willing to uproot and move, would you advise that they try to rally any like-minded people that they have where they currently are and do a group move so that they have known people in this new area versus having to start the network all over?
Yes. Okay. Moving with people you know and trust is great. But every person comes with their own baggage. Every family comes with their own baggage. I do not believe in everyone sharing one compound, one thing.
Right.
Your land is, neighbors and dividing it up and everyone doing whatever. That's one thing. And getting around like-minded individuals is another. But yeah, it'd be great if you can all sit there and and be like, okay, let's move to this place. And whether you're sharing property lines or not, great. But at least you could go into then on something like that and you could say, hey, here's 1,000 acres, let's divide this up. Or here's 100 acres, let's divide this up. And then you know who your neighbors are, and you got that. And then you make plans with, hey, if they're going to sell you a first right of refusal, that type of stuff. And you can start bringing in people you want. So multi-family compounds, I'm cool with. That's, where everybody's around each other. Everyone believes the same thing. But the great thing is if you go to a conservative area, everyone has the potential to be that.
Right.
It's not like here where we've got, neighbor after neighbor who are Democrats who hate when we shoot guns. Yeah. And the only guy that we've ever heard shoot guns is 2 doors down, and he's got a Trump sign in his yard, and we can be like, yeah, hey, fist bump. We're
that's terrible. Oh, gosh, I'm so bad at it.
What?
I just totally failed at that fist bump.
Yeah.
Like I fail at high fives. I just don't even try. My daughter, my 18-month-old, gives better high fives to him than I do.
Lauren Cat.
I just, that they coordinate.
Hey! No, you just did one, all right?
Let's just stop there.
Yeah. Normally is a... She's her mother's daughter. It's all right. So, poor Patty. Anyways, where were we?
We were talking about fist bumping our neighbor 2 doors down.
Yeah, do you want to try that again?
No, I don't.
Okay. So anyways, we know if anything went wrong, that's where we would go and we would talk to one another and say, hey, listen, all these other people here, they don't have any food in their basement. They don't have anything here. Mm-hmm. If we get, here's a radio over here. If we need help, we'll come to you. You come to us if you need help. Those mutual aid agreements that we talked about.
The secret handshake is a bottle of Trump wine.
Yes.
That's how you know if you're on the same team or not.
Exactly. But, that's the other thing is, as we've been scouting with a group of friends, we've got probably 3 to 5, maybe 6 families that are considering doing this with us. And, everyone's been out visiting towns that they want to see and that they're scouting to see if this is going to work. And one of our friends who happens to live in the city of Charlottesville, who had to take down his American flag, didn't have to. He chose because he didn't want to be harassed, which to this day I'll never forgive him for it. But I'll let him live it down. But, he was like, I saw a post of his on social media. You wouldn't believe how great it feels to be a conservative walking around a town with American flags, church bells ringing, and being around fellow patriot Americans. And that's what we all want. Right? That's what we all want.
Yeah.
We want 4th of July every day.
Well, it's kind of like that feeling, probably like when you go to a Trump rally and you know that you're surrounded by those like-minded individuals, singing the anthem and the flags flying.
Well, people are going to pray.
It's like that, but it's living there.
Yeah. That when you go to a kid's football game, you're going to stand up and do the national anthem and maybe sing My Country 'Tis of Thee. That type of stuff. That's what we all want because that's our identity, right? We've given away our identity to secularism, which is identity politics. The American identity was, I don't care where you came from. Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Africa, China, Russia, wherever. If you come here and you love this country, we're cool. You embrace our values.
Yep.
I don't care what your values were over there. You embrace our values here. You love that flag. We're cool. You're welcome. You're not only welcome, I will love you like my own family. Yeah. But that's not what we got. No, we've got everybody who wants to celebrate themselves instead of the country.
Bring their culture with them.
Well, that or the supreme selfishness. Like the atheist, I'm an atheist, or everyone's going to be an atheist, or I'm this, and you can't do that because I'm this. And it's just terrible. So anyways, being around those like-minded, it's good for the soul, everyone. It's good for the soul. It's good to know that, that a community like that you believe will pull together when something goes wrong, right? That's where in the South, the Cajun Navy, which is just a bunch of dudes with boats going around and helping people.
So it's the best part of those natural disasters is seeing them afterwards.
Is seeing these groups of people who just go out there and help, which, Ken Graves, our pastor and friend, when the last hurricane came through from Maine, he went down to Alabama to help those people out.
Yep.
Right? Because he's a logger by trade.
Yeah.
And he went down there before he was a pastor.
Yeah.
And did that. So, it's good for the soul. And I think that, once you get there, you're never going to regret it.
Yeah, I mean, there's inevitably adjustments,
Right.
especially as you're talking about going more remote and farther from that convenience. And that for me, if this happens, it's going to be one of the hardest adjustments is just knowing that there's not the access to that stuff. He always makes fun of me because I don't really leave the house. But I like knowing that I can get to the store in 10 minutes.
Lauren has the biggest FOMO, fear of missing out, ever, even though she never goes anywhere.
It's nice that when I do need to go to the grocery store, it's 10 minutes away. It's nice that our airport is 10 minutes away. It's nice. So those things will be different. And so but once you get past that adjustment, I think you then truly see the value for where you are, especially if why you moved there, the reasons that brought you there end up happening, that the liberal
Right.
cities go to hell and all that, and you're like, okay, I'm really glad I'm in my safe remote town.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to explore some areas further, but being around and knowing that you're kind of comfortable out in your own skin as far as who you are and what you want to represent is accepted there.
How about knowing your neighbors?
Yeah.
Right? I saw Baby B smoking a cigarette, when she's older or whatever. That needs to get back to us ASAP. In that type of town, it would.
Oh, man, she's screwed.
Yeah, exactly. Where it takes a village to raise a kid. That's what we want.
A Christian village.
Yeah, exactly.
The right kind of village.
And that was part of the pro-God part of town.
Yeah.
Depending on your religion, whether you're, Muslims do this very well. They move to Muslim towns, they take it over and they put out their values, and whether we agree with them or not, they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need to do. This isn't new. This is what Abraham did in the Bible when God told him to go. This is what the Pilgrims did, right? When they came over here, they got tired of dealing with the king and their way they were making them do religion. So they said, we're going to go do one of the most courageous things ever, sail across the sea to an unknown place to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I was talking to some of my friends who I was trying to convince to come along with us, they're like, well, why don't I just buy something around here and this and that? And, they thought that Trump was going to protect them. And then when the idea that Trump wasn't going to come around, that really helped. And the other part was, when I told them, I don't want to raise my kids in a secular society that's going to be where they're going to be under attack all the time. I want them to have a time of innocence.
In those impressionable years when they're so open to impressions, and as a parent, you can't control all of that. And influences. So and we were having this conversation, there's Christian cooperatives around here. And so you think that you can kind of put them in this bubble, but you truly can't control all of that. So if there's the chance that greater spirit in the town is a negative one, that will find them.
Yeah, it's the world you live in. Now you can control what happens in your door, but if your reality and your worldview ends at your door, then everything beyond that is influencing your child in one way or another. So why not have it pulling it in the same way that you are?
Yeah.
Which I thought Calvary Chapel Bangor did a very good job. And I think one of the reasons why we struggled so much in Maine is that we lived in Bangor, 2 blocks from Susan Collins and Stephen King, and Bangor City is very liberal.
Yeah.
I couldn't walk past a house that didn't have a BLM sign or I believe in blah, 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 blah. And it makes you feel under attack.
Well, you certainly know that you're not surrounded by people who support you, that's for sure. And that also then that's where your daughter's going to go to school and that mindset and all that if you're doing the public system.
So the whole time I'm out there walking around, I'm like, wow, these people don't like me.
Yeah.
If they knew what I believed in and who I supported and who I voted for, that things hit the fan, I'm the first one they're going to try to get rid of. So, I think that really took a toll versus you drive over that bridge into Orrington, where Calvary Chapel is and all the Trump signs are up and all the families there and the American flags, and they are so tight over there. I often wonder if we had made it over that bridge and got over there.
No looking back.
No, I know, but I'm just saying. I think that they get something special. But again, they're an isolated island in the middle of nowhere. Surrounded by.
And they're in Maine, which, as you said, is going
exactly
bluer by the day.
So the next thing that I wanted to talk about here was, let's see here,
Natural resources.
Natural resources. So when I choose a property, I make sure, if I'm going to be dropping roots, if it's not an investment property, if it's not a short-term thing, I want to buy something that's got water on it. Like, we've got a running creek in our backyard with a waterfall on it and all that stuff. We will never need water if we need it.
Yeah, it never dries up.
Right.
It gets low, but it never dries up.
Right, but even when it's low, it's still, like, you can still get in it.
Get in it. It's plenty to drink.
Right.
You needed.
Right, so we have that. We have plenty of sunshine for solar.
Yes.
Right? We have, great soil for planting, even though we haven't.
If anyone wants to teach me what to do, my thumb is black and it needs to be green.
Yeah.
Mama's got some learning to do.
You need some extra time.
That's a good place to start.
Right. So the natural resources at night, access to game. We've got deer in our backyard all the time. Food if you need it. Now, the more population you have, the less urban or the less forest you're going to have, or less vegetation you're going to have. So the less animals you're going to have, and they're going to get out hunted really quickly if things ever went bad. So again, this is stuff to look at. Then you want to look at, the first thing I look at, or the next thing I look at is access to quality health care.
And that's where I mentioned earlier, that line of being close to convenience versus all these other things that you're trying to get away from convenience for. You're not really going to find that quality health care in these very rural, remote areas. And so most times that's going to be the challenge.
So
it's like,
what you can do is you can get a university hospital, right? Like UVA is a great hospital here in Charlottesville, which is not that big of a city. It's 50,000, whatever. That's still bigger than what I want. We're looking around 2,000, 3,000. Right. Under 10,000 is what we're looking at. But having that 30 minutes away, perfect.
So that 30 minutes for you is
30 minutes for me
time.
would be ideal. I'm willing to stretch it for the right property. I've got a lot of medical training, have supplies, all that stuff. And then you're a life flight or a hop, skip, and a jump to a trauma one center. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's the way I look at it. So stabilizing care, like we are 15 minutes from Martha Jefferson ER here, which is great, right? We're 25 minutes to UVA, right? It's not much further, but it's just windy roads and all that stuff.
20.
And that's a trauma one center. Mm-hmm. So again, that's pretty unique. But again, the thing that makes that so good is the university hospital, which is what destroys this area. Right. UVA is what destroyed Charlottesville. So you have that. Then the next thing that you need, right, is utilities.
Yeah.
Right. Internet. We're an internet business, so we need something that's going to be able to do internet.
That's the other.
That's the biggest challenge we were finding.
The more remote you go, the harder it's going to be.
Right. Well, they have that new Elon Musk program,
Starlink,
whatever, where those satellites will be low, and you'll be. And I think that's all. I think that's what we'll probably end up going to, or something like that. But there are places where you can get lucky. Mm-hmm. We saw this with a lot of our clients in our other company, where in the middle of nowhere, they have better fiber optic than we do in our nice neighborhood.
Yeah. Yes, an area you might have gotten a grant or something.
Yeah.
But I know that a lot of times when we were house searching up in Maine, there was a lot of places that checked all the boxes, and then you'd run the address through the internet provider, and it wasn't there, or it wasn't good enough internet. So that's, and some people don't need as good internet.
Right.
So that might not be as high up on the necessary list for people.
The next thing is access to an airport for life, right? You want, for me, it's like an hour. I'd like to be less than an hour from an airport. It doesn't have to be like Chicago O'Hare, but it should be like Charlottesville Airport is great.
A place that connects to one of the more major ones, yeah.
So I think having that is something I would be looking at for business, and it's the sign of a healthy region, right? Because
People want to come here.
Yeah, exactly. Access to goods and services, right? And what do I mean by that? Do you have a plumber, electricians? Do you have a Lowe's or a Home Depot or an Ace Hardware or some local chain?
Yeah.
Right. Do you have restaurants?
My Whole Foods with all of my
No,
dietary
you're not
needs.
gonna get Whole Foods, so you're gonna have to.
Complicated.
Yeah.
He hates it.
Her face with that realization settled in. But no, some of the places I'm looking at, one of the things I have to put up there is organic or a healthy food grocery store, and I'm finding them. So are they Whole Foods? No, but
I just eat my gluten-free.
you need your gluten-free. You might need to grow your own gluten-free.
Got my own. Okay. Next.
Corn. Yeah, corn.
Our corn.
So access to goods and services for what you need, right? So again, if you're fine if you never want to eat out again, but if you want pizza, you better make sure you got pizza. Chinese, if that's a big thing for you, like one of the places we're looking at is pretty much a foodie spot, even though it's because a bunch of Italians settled there at one point. So
no wonder you're looking at it.
A town of around 3,500, and it's known as a foodie place.
He's got not a drop of Italian in him yet. Those are his soul people.
Yes, no Italian in me whatsoever.
Food.
But man, when my Viking and Irish and Scottish relatives were out there sailing around, when they hit Italy, something happened, boy. So anyways, having the access to those, to the services you want is going to be huge for quality of life. Obviously, if it's, stuff hit the fan and zombie apocalypse and none of that stuff matters. But you don't want to buy a place that's only for that and never have it happen and be miserable for the rest of your life.
Oops. Yeah.
Right? So
you looked at one of those places in Maine and you remember the place that was totally off the grid.
I loved it. It was still understand it was still within an hour to everything. Lauren.
Yes.
How many times have you been to the store in the past 12?
Every week. I go shopping for you.
I mean, outside a grocery store.
I went to Target.
Once. In the last
month and a half.
And then before that? Lauren, again,
it's there. I can go. It's there.
They all ship.
Yeah.
They all ship. So.
But then I might have to return it, and then that never happens.
Well, then we just get more stuff to throw out there. Anyways, so the last thing in our top 10, and I'm going to have to redo this for the short one because we went all over the place, but is the budget friendly, right? Whatever your budget is, what my budget is different than your budget, is different than someone else's budget. So you don't want to go someplace where you're going to be poor because you move there. You want to have extra funds so you can put up your solar power, so you can have your water filtration system, so you can do all the things you want to do, so you can build your gym in the barn and do all that stuff, right? So again, you don't want to just spend all your stuff in one place, particularly those of you on fixed incomes who really tight on what you have. Be smart and move to a place where you're not using every cent just to wake up in the morning. So where are we looking? Well, right now we're looking in Tennessee and we're looking in West Virginia. Those are two big places we're looking at. Some parts of North Carolina, even though North Carolina is a battleground state. But that's really the 2 to 3 places we're looking.
And this is being qualified with it depends on who ultimately is president, right?
Well, I want to get there eventually, but the urgency is on if Biden completes his steal of this election, then this spring we will be looking to sell and move. That's the third time in a year. Well, no, third time in less than a year. May will be. Yeah. But this time we're not moving before the house sells, so way easier.
Is it? Is it easier? Fun.
Again, I wish we didn't have to do this. It's not something, I love where we live. I love our mountain view. I love our creek. I love our property. But being the only cowboy in an all-Indian town, or being one of the few cowboys in all Indian town, it's not good for your well-being. It's not good for your mental state. It's not good for, I go out and shoot in my backyard. My neighbor doesn't like it. He calls the police and says I'm a whatever. And next thing you know, I got red flag police at my front door. Mm-hmm. That's a no-go for me. So, well, I'm going to pray us out now. I appreciate you guys spending this hour with us. So, dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you now, and we ask that you be with us, Lord. We ask that you would heal our nation, that you would protect, our families, our troops overseas, our first responders at home. And, Lord, we ask that you would protect our president, Donald J. Trump, and that you would bring all the fraud and all the truth to light, because you are the truth, Lord. Pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
See ya. Bye.